Hey guys, Oxzowachi here, and in this video I'm just going to be going over every single possible OBL shape and what I'm going to be calling it in my OBL tutorial. So before I really get started, I need to cover some basic concepts of OBL shape recognition. So as a rule of thumb in OBL, when you're recognizing, you're going to look at the shape that has the least amount of pieces on that particular layer. So for example, in this one, we're not going to look at the black pieces because there's tons of those. It's easier to recognize the shape of the white. And meanwhile on the bottom, we're not going to look at all the white pieces because it's easier to determine the shape of these 2 black pieces instead of the 6 white ones. Of course, for some shapes, there's an even amount of white and black pieces on each layer. So this is 4 white pieces and 4 black pieces. And this is generally on a case-by-case basis. In this particular shape, we pay attention to this shape, the edge, corner, edge, and the extra edge. And then same with this one, the edge, corner, edge block, and the extra edge. We don't look at this and these black pieces up here. So that's just something that you're going to have to wrap your head around for OBL. You're not always going to be looking at the black pieces or always at the white pieces. You're just going to be looking for shapes that you recognize. If you get an OBL and you don't recognize the shape that you're looking at, just try looking at the other colors. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and start going through all the shapes and their names. Alright, starting with the super simple cases to recognize. This is just one corner, and it's just called 1C for short. Now we have 2 corners and they're adjacent to each other. So we call this C-adj or C-adj. That's what it looks like. You can also have 2 corners but they're diagonal or opposite of each other, and we call this C-opp or C-opp. And lastly, for the corners, you can have 3 corners. So this is 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 blacks on bottom. And we just call this 3C for short. For our next shape, we have pair, which is just a corner and an edge paired together. So we call it a pair. The next shape is an arrow, which is the same amount of pieces as a pair, but instead of being connected, they are separated. It's an arrow, I guess, because this would be like the tip of the arrow, and it's shooting this way, and this would be the feather. I like to call this particular arrow right arrow, because if you point the arrow upwards, then the whole shape is on the right. But you can also have left arrow, which just has the edge on the other side. Instead of over here, it's over here. So if you were to point the arrow upwards with this edge on bottom, then the whole shape is on the left, so I call this left arrow. The next shape is also pretty easy to recognize. This is called a gem, because if you kind of look at it like this, it looks like a carved diamond, or some other gem like that. And it's just an edge, corner, and edge connected to each other. Pretty simple to recognize. Alright, the next shape is called knight, with a K, and it's a corner and then 2 adjacent edges connected to that corner. And it's called a knight because you can kind of see this pair as like the helmet of the knight, and he's facing to the right, and then this is his body going down, so the knight's facing to the right. So this would be called right knight, and this would be called left knight because the knight is facing to the left. If this is his head and his eyes are like over here and he's facing this way, this is left knight. Next, this is called axe. It is another case with a corner and 2 edges, but instead of them being adjacent edges, they are opposite of each other, and this is the shape you get. Obviously, it's called an axe because these 2 edges would make the handle of the axe, and then this would be the blade. The corner would be the blade. And so I would call this right axe since it's facing the right, and then this would be left axe because the axe is facing the left. The next shape we have is called squid, and it's a corner and 2 adjacent edges as we've seen before, except this time the edges are over here. They're opposite of the corner, and so you could see this as the corner is the head of the squid, and the edges over here are like the tentacles. So this is an upright squid right here. So yeah, this case would be called squid squid. For our next shape we have thumb, which basically looks like a gem but with an extra edge. It's called thumb because if you hold it like this with the gem on the bottom, it kind of looks like a thumbs up. And so this would be called right thumb because if you hold your right hand like this with a thumbs up, it looks like this to you, so that's right thumb. And I also like to call it right thumb because when I hold the gem on the top, the whole shape is on the right. So this would be right thumb, and then of course this would be left thumb because if you put the gem on top, this is on the left, or this is what a left thumbs up looks like to you. Next shape we have is a bit crazy. Now it's one corner and 3 edges. So this shape is called a bunny because if you hold it like this, it kind of looks like a bunny facing to the right. So like this would be the body, this would be the face of the bunny, and then the edges would be its ears. It's kind of weird, but you know, that's just what it's called. This is a bunny on bottom with the black pieces. This would be called right bunny because the bunny is facing to the right. So if this is eyes, it's facing that way. So that's right bunny, and this is right bunny. And then this would be left bunny because the bunny is facing to the left, like this. Before I continue, I want to make an important note that hopefully is obvious, but might not be to everybody, that these cases will not always be with themselves. So you're not always going to get pair. You're going to get a lot of combinations of different shapes. I will cover how to solve all the combinations of these shapes in my OBL tutorial, which is going to be a multi-part series. This video is just showing you what you can get on one side, and it's not teaching you about the combinations of those different shapes. Alright, the next shape is called shell. It is 2 adjacent corners and an edge in the middle. It kind of looks like a kite, except that it's missing an edge, so this is a kite, and now it's a shell. But yeah, it's basically just like corner edge, corner block, we call it a shell. This next shape is called bird, because if you hold it like this, then this would be like the body of the bird, facing this way, and then this would be the wings. It can be a bit hard to see, but it helps to see the diagrams on Square-1 OBL.com, which I will link in the description. So once again, this would be the bird facing this way, and these are the wings. And there are 2 different kinds of birds, there's left and right, but we don't really usually make a distinction between them. So this would be a different bird facing this way this time with the wings up here, and this would be another bird. And just as a reminder, you're not going to look at this shape, like this big block and this edge, and you're probably not going to know what this is, so just look at the other color and you realize, oh, it's a bird. This next shape is called hazard because if you look at these 2 corners and this edge, it kind of makes a radioactive sign. Though to be honest, I don't think we usually look at these pieces when doing the solutions. We normally look at the inverse color, so these 2 pairs and this edge, but this is called hazard because of this 3-piece shape. Next shape we have is kite. It should be pretty familiar to you. It's just a corner edge block, and when you have good kite, it's just a 1 slice OBL, so that makes me very happy to see. Next we have a case that can look a little chaotic at first, but when you realize that it's just an M2 away from kite, you realize it's actually pretty similar to the very calming shape that is kite. So this shape is called cut because it's basically a kite with an edge cut out of it and folded over to the other side. And it sounds similar to kite, which is convenient because it is pretty similar to kite, just with one edge over here instead of over here. This shape is called T because it basically looks like the letter T. So you have the top of the T here and the stem or whatever here. So this makes a T shape, and then this would be a white T on bottom. So yeah, this is T. This case is an exception to the rule of thumb I said at the beginning, where you look at the shape with the least amount of pieces. So in this one, we look at the edge corner edge block and this edge corner pair, or you could think of this as a gem and a pair. And this shape is called Yoshi. And I guess the reasoning behind that is this is the body of the Yoshi, and this is the head of Yoshi, and he's facing to the right. And on bottom, this is the body of Yoshi, and this is the head, and he's facing to the right. So this would be called right Yoshi. And then similarly, if we had this, then this would be the body of the Yoshi, and this would be his head facing left. This would be the body, and this would be the head. So this would be left Yoshi since he's facing the left. Next case, we call this N because it looks a lot like the N perm. So as you can see, we have corner edge blocks going all around, just like this. So instead of an N perm with PBL, it's an N perm with OBL. This is just called N, pretty simple. Last but not least, we have the shape called tie, and this, you can think of this as, this is like the knot of the tie, and this is the actual tie going down. So there's like a person wearing a tie, and then the tie is going down here, and then same here. This is like the knot of the tie, or the person wearing the tie, and the tie goes down here. So this shape is called tie, and this case would be called tie because there are two ties. Alright, so those are the names of every single OBL shape that you can get. If you want any more explanation or clarification as to these names, then feel free to ask me in the comments. And I'll also leave a link to Square-1 OBL.com by Michael Young, which is a great OBL resource and should help you learn some of the names of the shapes. I hope you found this interesting or helpful, and it should be especially helpful if you're going to learn from my OBL tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.